Welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio, where we share tried and tested ways to grow your brand and get more customers. Everything from the latest in marketing and branding, right through to growing your team and creating an irresistible culture.
Hi, and welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio. I am so excited about this episode today because I'm chatting with Tracey Felicidade Jones, and we're discussing the brand Archetypes. Tracey is a passionate brand builder, and she delves deep into what archetypes are and how you can use them in your business in order to grow. So let's dive straight in. Hi, Tracey. So good to have you here on Basic Bananas Radio.
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this discussion because I know you are a passionate brand builder. And I actually, before we dive into the topic we want to discuss today, I would love to hear your journey. So what we're going to discuss today is one of your favorite topics, which is brand archetypes. Now, before we dive into that, can you share a little bit about your story? I know right now you're in Denver, Colorado, but you have a South African accent. And
Yes.
you've done marketing as a marketing manager for many large brands. You started your own agency many years ago. Tell us a little bit about your journey and also what lights your fire.
Okay. Well, I never actually studied marketing. I studied out of college. I studied food service management and dietetics and was always a bit more creative. And I didn't really enjoy working in the hospitals. And started doing menu creation for various airlines. And then I got sucked into the FMCG or CPG, as they call it in the States, industry and fell in love with marketing because I saw I started working for a medical company, Bristol Myers Squibb, and all the cool events and all the cool things going to doctors came from the marketing. And it was creative campaigns and it was just fun, clever, catchy and memorable campaigns. And I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. So I started studying marketing while I was busy working, and then soon moved to work at some of the big corporates, and then ended up at Nestlé in South Africa and was the category marketing manager for the food portfolio. So looked after things like Kit Kat, Maggie brands. And that's where I really started to understand a big brand because Nestlé is the biggest food company in the world. And if they know how to do brands, I mean, they wrote the book on brand, really. So that's when I learned really about archetypes and started working with really cool agencies, and just started living your DNA. Like every brand has its own personality. And if you don't understand the personality or the archetype, then how do you look? How do you message? What channel do you communicate in? Because if you don't get that, then everything else just falls apart and you don't resonate with your target audience. So I was at Nestle for many years, and then I got kind of tired of the corporate gig. Things took quite a bit of time. I had a regional office in Singapore, a global office in Switzerland, and I'm very much a make it happen. So opened up my own agency in 2011. And I felt there was a gap for agencies that got what marketing people needed because I've been on that side. And also, a lot of the agencies don't necessarily have the marketing side. So they don't understand marketing foundations. They understand the creative execution, but do they understand the foundations of marketing? So I opened my own business. It was called Brand Spanking Marketing. And we soon became a full service agency. And then about 3.5 years ago, moved from South Africa to Denver, Colorado, and opened up a division there. And we're very much about you need to look the part. And what we realized in America was the word brand spanking marketing wasn't resonating with the American audience. We love it in South Africa because you have to have a sense of humor.
I love it too. I really love it. In Australia, it would go well. In Australia, people love that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
It's interesting.
It's exactly, but you got to know your audience, and that's one of our key things. You got to look and sound the part, or you're never going to get your followers. And what we realized in the US is that the word marketing has a very mixed reputation because people have been let down. They don't know what they're getting, or they've been overpromised. And the word spanking could be contentious. And they also they want to know, what are you really, really, really good at? And we're really, really good at building brands. So we rebranded to Trace Brand Building because we're storytellers and we're really, really good at building brands. So that's a little bit about me and on my journey.
Now, when you were at Nestle, so you mentioned that, and obviously I grew up with Nestle in Switzerland. It's literally,
Yeah.
as you say, it's the biggest. I didn't actually know it was the biggest food brand. I knew it was probably the biggest in the chocolate industry. What makes Nestle the biggest? Obviously, marketing has a massive, massive, if not the number
Yeah.
one impact in making it the biggest brand. What, in terms of marketing, makes them so strong? And then also,
I
what is maybe a campaign that you've seen or some campaigns that you've worked on that were really clever, really good?
so I think the take a break, have a Kit Kat, take a break, that was really successful. I think because they are very brand led. If you want to build your business, build your brand. Okay. And what we mean by that is know your personality inside out, know who you are, know your target audience. And Nestle is very, very good at honing down and staying true to who they are. If they need to talk about certain things or something's happening in the world, they will be able to talk about it, but in that brand tone of voice. Whereas a lot of brands flip-flop between should I do this, should I do that, what's cool, what's trending now, instead of adopting and being true to your DNA. And Nestle is very, very much almost like I'll die on a sword. That's my brand. And we don't move. That's who we are. Every like 7 or 8 years, you should look at your brand. Is it still relevant? Has your audience changed? And if you look at the Nestle logo, it's that nest, right? And every couple of years or couple of decades, they would just slightly change the nest. Biggest food brand in the world, you don't want to freak out your investors. So if you Google Nestle brand logo, evolution from like when it started, it's completely different to what it is now. But they do it so subtly over the time you don't notice it. And that's the power of successful brand evolution. So um, yeah, because of that, they've been able to build brands like Nescafe, Maggie, Kit Kat, you name it, and just dominate because they're delivering on a brand promise and everyone knows what they're getting. I think you're on mute. Sorry.
Apologies for that. I was just struggling because I got two screens. I was struggling to get my cursor back on
That's
the main
okay.
screen. Yeah, I was just saying, what brand archetype is Nestle?
Well, it depends on which sub brands you deal with. A lot of it's the caregiver, the hero. It also depends on which brand you're working on. You've got some that are explorer. There's so many sub brands that it's each one has its own personality. You don't just get one brush for everyone. So, and they're completely innovating, which is also great. And that's another big thing about a powerful brand is how do you move into subcategories and how do you make it exciting? For example, I used to look after the out of home division. So that's talking with hotels and restaurants. So what would happen is they need a really great dessert topping for KFC or McDonald's. So we would develop then Milo kibble or Milo sauce or Kit Kat crumble that goes on top of your crushes. So it's about taking your brand and innovating it so that it still stays relevant, moving into ready to drink, cold ready to drinks. It's just about, again, innovating and staying fresh.
Yeah, let's talk about brand archetypes now. So a lot of our listeners run small businesses and they obviously don't have the budget that the types of Nestle have. They absolutely are able to understand brand archetypes and apply to their businesses. And I do believe that it will make a huge impact for them. That's why I'm so excited to have you here, Tracey. So maybe let's start by explaining what exactly a brand archetype is, where it originates from. My English
Sure.
today is a little bit lacking. I don't know why. I have had too
Sorry.
many coffees, maybe. I'm
You You're doing just fine.
I feel like my brain is working on double speed, but I can't keep up with my linguistics.
Nespresso. There we go.
I don't even like Nescafe, but hey,
That's okay.
do you like
That's all
Nestle? For some things that they're doing are great. Some not so much. So brand archetypes, what is it? Where does it come from? And then we'll go into how to apply it, and well, obviously the different archetypes and how to apply it for a small business.
Great. Okay. So it was developed by Carl Jung. And basically it's the DNA of your business. So it's the DNA of, your brand personality, if I can make it, in layman's terms. We all have our default personality. Okay. So for example, I'm naturally quite an outgoing person. But there are times when I'm going to want to just be super analytical or super quiet. Okay. But what is my default? My default is that I'm an outgoing person. I like to connect people. I like to network, and I thrive when I am in those kind of environments. Okay. Every company or brand should have the same. Okay. What is your brand DNA? And it's all based on your brand values. Okay. So what do you value? I just came off a call earlier with a client, and it's a great art project that she's busy doing. And she wants her customers that are going to come onto her website to feel like they can be authentic. There's inclusivity. So we actually looked at where does she fit into everything. And it turns out she's a little bit of the innocent and a little bit of the hero. So you've got these 12, well, there's actually 60 archetypes, but there's 12 fundamental, and then there's 4 sub-archetypes underneath each to form 60 archetypes. And there's a wheel that I can also send you that you can have a look at. And what's so important is that it allows you to do certain things. For example, an explorer archetype would be something like Red Bull. Okay. Red Bull, as we know, if you think of the brand, it's busy, there's action, everything's always exciting. I'm a huge Formula One fan. And if I'm not watching the F1 that was in Melbourne, because I couldn't, I'm leaning into Facebook and seeing like, who's winning? Is Lando winning the race? What's going on? And because of who they are, they can get away with sending me 20 to 30 messages a day because I'm consuming it and I'm in there. Okay. Now, if you look at the innocent is something like Coca-Cola or Dove, which is embrace all body types. Can you imagine getting 20 to 30 messages on Facebook from Coca-Cola or Dove? You'd be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to unfollow you. So it's so important to really understand who you are, and it allows you to communicate in certain channels. So that's where it is. We always say you shouldn't really choose more than 2 of your 12. You can't be, because then you start causing confusion with your target audience. So for example, you can't be showing up as the lover archetype where you're all seductive and a lot of chocolate and perfume brands are in that lover space. And then the next day you're the outlaw and you're gangster and you're like breaking through and fighting for a cause. The next day you're the sage and you're super, not nerdy, but you're super intellectual, because you're just going to cause confusion. So we say you should have not more than 2. There'll be sprinkles of everything in you, but what are the main ones that resonate with your core values? So that's kind of how we like to approach it. And then once you know who you are, do you look the part? And that's where we really shine, as we help businesses understand who they are. And then if you're a lover brand or lover archetype, but now you're dressed like a super nerd and your vision doesn't match your archetype, there's going to be instant distrust with your target audience. So, and is your messaging aligned? So that's how it all kind of flows, if that makes sense.
I love that. And especially what I love about the archetypes, and we work with archetypes quite a lot, is because it gives business owners a tool to pick something from, because we can all come up with our own archetypes or with our own DNA, and we've done that through, when I was working in advertising, doing strategic work, and even for some of the brands that we've built ourselves and our members, we 100% can create our own DNA. When you take the archetypes modules, the framework that you just shared, and we'll definitely give them the downloadable framework that you have, if that's okay in a podcast.
Absolutely.
It's they can go and pick something that resonates with them. And then, as you say, I think the most important thing then is to stick with one or two of those types. Now, if I'm a small business owner, let's say I run a florist, a flower shop, and I look at these 12 fundamental archetypes, and I just have no idea. I'm like, well, I don't even know where to start. I don't know if I'm a lover, a sage, or an explorer, or an innocent. Like, I don't even know where do I start?
So what's great is that there are examples and there's written words, okay, and brands, like good successful brands next to this. So for example, I mean, I can read one to you right now if you want.
Yeah, definitely.
So for example, I've got these little, everyone says to me, are you going to read my cards for me now, Tracey? I've got these little, these are my 60 archetypes, okay? And for example, this is the ruler, okay? The ruler is all about power, confidence, dominion, high status, and leadership, okay? The ruler represents power and control, and it's motivated to lead. Distinguished from the sovereign, the ruler's position is earned or created rather than inherited. Okay. The ruler has no need to protect. Instead, the ruler must demonstrate expertise, a proven track record and competence before taking control. This archetype is a realist and finds meaning in creating structures, organizations, and environments that are harmonious, fruitful, and constructive. And a good example of a ruler is Mercedes-Benz. So it's about not looking, and I always say, don't look at the logos that might be associated with an archetype, because you might hate Red Bull, but you could still be an explorer. You might hate Mercedes, but you could still be, and people were like, oh, I don't want to be like Mercedes. Okay. That's their tone of voice that might be coming across as arrogant. A ruler is also British Airways. So look at the words. And if the words resonate, like confidence, high status, leadership, you'll know in your gut, do those align with my values? Is that who I am? And what I say to people is, when you go through these 12 archetypes, put a rating of 0 to 10, okay, as you talk and as you read the words, and say 0 being it doesn't relate to me at all, 10 is like, this is so me, and rate yourself, and then go through and you'll soon find out which are the ones that are really, really talking about you. I'll give you another one if you want. Let's talk about the outlaw. The outlaw is my favorite. Leadership, risk-taking, progressive and provocative thought, bravery, personal power, brutal honesty, and experimentation. They're a force to be reckoned with, representing the voices that's had enough. They're a key to social change and acceptance as a view on fresh perspective, new outlook, aspirational change, and awakening. A rule breaker, but not necessarily in a bad way. You could be an accountant, an outlaw accountant just doing accounting in a different way. They challenge convention by questioning the status quo and pushing the envelope. With bold leadership, courage, and power, they help to dispel others' fears of victimization. A good example of the outlaw is Harley-Davidson and Virgin. Look at Richard Branson. He's got a brand, right? And whether you take a flight on Virgin Atlantic or whether you are on a cruise or in his hotel, there's a feeling, an experience, and they show up in a certain way, right? Because he's leaning into that archetype. So read the words, give yourself a rating of 0 to 10, and you'll quickly figure out what you are. And then my thing's quite detailed. There's like 3 pages on each, which gives you more details. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And the cool thing about the good news about this is, for our listeners here, we are going to host a masterclass also on this with you, which we'll link in the show notes. So anyone who wants to come to the masterclass, it's a more intensive session with Tracey, where we're going to brainstorm this with you on your business. So stay tuned for that one. What I'm also hearing, Tracey, is that businesses need to first have clarity, or it's probably recommended to first work on their brand values. And once they know that, to then go into this, because then, as you say, the gut will go, hey, actually, because our brand value is adventure or innovation, or any of the brand values that businesses pick, then they can align their archetypes with what they stand for.
100%. Because if you don't know who you are at the soul, then how do we create this little heartbeat? And then how do we dress it and make it look ready for the world? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Value aligned.
Super helpful for our listeners. I know we're coming towards the end of this episode. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? I wonder if we should briefly touch on, because you've mentioned you've alluded a few times to, you need to look the part. You need to look the part. You need to look the part. Should we quickly mention a little bit something around how to look the part based on these archetypes?
Sure.
Where to start even?
For sure. Okay, so for an example, we rebranded a barber, okay, a fellow EO member, called Tribute. And you know those very British looking pole, you know, those round barber poles that you had whenever you look at a barber, they kind of have this very traditional looking thing.
Yeah.
Now, when we did this exercise with him, he is very much about the outlaw, okay? He loves music. He loves the Grateful Dead. He wanted his salon to be a tribute to the entrepreneurs, the hustlers, the bustlers. You go in there, you get as many drinks as you want, you get your shoes polished, you get a fresh shirt so you're not itchy, you choose your fragrance, and you listen to really awesome music, okay? When we looked at him, we said, Nick, this is who you are. You're the outlaw, but you look very nerdy or very, just not Nick. You don't look authentic to who you are. This personality, you look very prim and proper. You don't look the part, okay? And we rebranded him to this, and we're big on like, what is your visual identity? So in other words, if you cover your logo, what are the visual elements that are coming through that'll allow you to still know that it's your brand? Is it a pattern? Is it a use of color? Is it illustration style? What is it that's making you very noticeable? And what we created was this holding shape, and it was a flashback to the old shaving blade. So it was a holding shape, and in that we put his new brand, Tribute, and everything resonated and looked in this fresh, vibey feel. And then he just looked like edgy, very, very edgy. And then even things like he had different packages. We renamed the packages. So the one package was called the ayahuasca journey. The other one was I'm disheveled. And you know, that's like you're going to get a shave or whatever. There's various packages that he was selling. So he's now starting to talk the way his brand is. And now it's one of the most popular barbers in Denver. It's seen as like the cool place for all the entrepreneurs to hang out because he's attracting his core audience because he looks and sounds the part. So you've got to just look like, if I'm an innocent brand, think about Dove. Dove is about embracing all body parts. All bodies, about embracing all body types.
And body parts too, yeah, you know.
And body parts too,
totally,
exactly. They're all about kind speech, okay?
Yeah.
That you can see their advertising and their billboards are like that. So is Coca-Cola. Can you imagine if they were all like, you know, outlawish and going against the grain? There would be this like mistrust, like you talking about purity, but you looking all hardcore. There'd be a mistrust. So that's why we always say, like, just spend time. And if you can do anything, just try and spend a little bit of money on just making sure you look the part, or go into Canva and just try and get some great design. There's also cues like what I'm going to send you. You'll also say like the Innocent brand. It's very simple design. It's very elegant. It's not very hectic and complicated. So based on your archetype, there's certain materials that you use when you do your branding or your manufacturing or clean ingredients. So it all comes down to, again, the heartbeat of your business.
I'm so glad that you share all this and talk about branding in such a way that hopefully our listeners realize how incredibly important, crucial it is to these days, even more so than ever, to build a good brand, because there's so much more competition. There's more competition internationally, and you really must focus on creating such a good brand like the Barber one, the one that you mentioned. It sometimes is really a matter of, we know, win or lose when you focus on building a great brand, and it can completely propel your business into a whole new stratosphere. Tracey, I really appreciate you sharing so much here already on this show, even in just 20 minutes. And I'm really excited about having you come on for a masterclass too. Any final words, anything that you would like to share?
No, I think don't be overwhelmed. See it as an exciting journey, and you are allowed to change your mind. You know, if you are a certain place in your business, but you want to be somewhere else, that's okay. You can be whoever you want to be, but you can't be a different person every day of the week. You got to pick a lane, double down on it, and live your brand values and live and look and sound the part. Have fun. Don't be intimidated. Reach out if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help people and just help them say, oh, I don't know about that. What about this? What about this? And when you're looking at this, remember it's about you. It's not about your target audience. That's one thing I forgot to mention. So some people are like, I'm an artist, therefore I must be a creator. Yes, but a heart surgeon can also be a creator archetype because he's creating new life through the way he's cutting through the heart. Don't think about your target audience. Think about you, because your target audience, that's buyer personas. That's something completely different. Enjoy it. It's an exciting journey to have your own business. It's super stressful, but super fun and liberating. And enjoy the ride. And if you want to build your business, build your brand and go and make brand magic.
Yes, absolutely. We will link in the show notes, we'll link to the information that Tracey is sharing also. And we'll also link to the masterclass that we've got coming up. In the masterclass, we're also going to talk a bit more about how to then use all this to leverage AI. So how to then use the right AI tools to implement your archetypes with Tracey. So again, thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. Thank you, Tracey, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, and great to chat.
To get more from Basic Bananas and to learn new ways to grow your business with clever marketing, visit basicbananas.com.